The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors: Woodland Stud, New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, Breckon Farms, Stonewall Stud, IRT, it's your horse and our passion, Australasian Wide Garrard's Horse and Hound, Rakiro Racing Stables, Lincoln Farms, The Clubs, Alexandra Park, Cambridge Raceway, Ashburton Trotting Club, Addington Raceway, and Harness Racing New Zealand.
Stand by. Racing in the 55th Miracle Mile, and King of Swing began hard. MacDan is being driven hard, looking for the lead, and soon after crosses the champ. What's he going to do? He comes away from the inside now, driving across Bondi Lockdown. Expensive Ego just in behind those. Spirit of St. Louis followed further back. Majestic Cruiser 8 metres away, then to Bundoora, 10 metres away at the tail. Better Eclipse now. King of Swing, he went around the outside, he regained the lead. They've gone 25-6 for the first quarter. Bondi Lockdown Park second. In third, Posy MacDan with the cold drop on the leader now. Expensive Ego gets into the 1-1, followed further back than on the inside. Majestic Cruiser. 3 back in the moving line is Spirit of St. Louis, followed by Better Eclipse, and last of all is Bundoora. There's about 25 metres covering the field as they work down the back straight. Leader here is King of Swing. McCarthy has a look across. Bondi Lockdown is sitting second. Parkton MacDan under lock and key third. 1 out, 1 back is the stablemate of the chant. That's Expensive Ego. They were followed on the inside then by Majestic Cruiser, Spirit of St. Louis. Well back is Better Eclipse. Bundoora sees them all. 29 that next quarter. 54-6 the half past the cages. King of Swing still 3 metres to Bondi Lockdown. MacDan patiently waits on the run. Here come the moves. Taking off now is Expensive Ego. Spirit of St. Louis about 5 wide. Better Eclipse tries to get into the fight. Majestic Cruiser sticks to the insiders. Heads were turned. 28-4, and he goes full bore on King of Swing. He races away. In second spot, trying to stay on now is Spirit of St. Louis, and they were followed by MacDan the inside. It's King of Swing. 100 metres left to go. He's holding the rivals at the moment. It's King of Swing. It's going to be a triple treat, a miracle three-peat, and what a way to bow out. King of Swing has beaten Spirit of St. Louis. Third home was Better Eclipse.
Yes, a historical night out of Manangu last Saturday night when, for the first time, a horse became a 3-time winner of Australia's greatest race, the Miracle Mile. Michael Guerin, I thought it was appropriate we start the show by showing the king of them all, King of Swing, doing what no other has done before.
Yeah, hi Greg, big hi to you and all of our friends watching around Australasia. The perfect race, Greg, the perfect race. And the reason it was perfect, I'll explain it to everybody. He got to win his third Miracle Mile, and he is the king of Manangu. He, alongside Smokin' Up, is the horse that made Manangu what it is. Those tracks to pull at people's heartstrings, to get them involved, need horses who do remarkable things. Unbeaten in 12 attempts at the mile around Manangu, Greg. He's the horse who deserves to win 3 Miracle Miles. But the great part was, it wasn't one of those races where he just dawdled to the front and everybody said it's a snooze fest and everybody said he would have won. He just got given the lead by the stablemates. They got him at the start. They got him at the start with MacDan. We'll talk more about him later. They had a go with Bondi Lockdown. Yes, the middle 800 was in 57.8. And he's held out and beaten a good horse, Greg, who may go on to be a really good horse. So the format of the race, the judgment of the race, might be what it deserves to be for a horse to create history in. And when you watch the race, Greg, you see him just drifting up the track. Very, very un-King of Swing-like. Never does that. What does it tell us? Tell us it's perfect. It's time for him to finish, Greg. He's had enough. They treated him about 8 weeks ago, injected his joints. They were getting sore there. Greg, it's all perfect. The timing was perfect. He got the job done. He won the race. The right man won the race. The right horse. And now he's off to stud, unblemished. The perfect race.
So a brilliant performance from him, beating Spirit of St. Louis. There were another couple of cracking runs in the race. Better Eclipse, beautifully driven by Greg Sugars. And also getting home was Majestic Cruiser, who was held up a little bit. But before we talk more about the King, let's have a look at his other 2 Miracle Miles. Here he was back in 2020, Michael, getting the business done in 1:48, beating a good horse in Lochinvar Art. And you'll notice the Kiwi, AG's White Sox, getting through on the inside in the Hope colours.
Yep, this occasion 1:48, so very similar time to the other day. Again, leading as he does. See different horse there, not getting up the track quite as much, not under as much pressure as he was the other day. This was when we started to say, hey, maybe he could win 3 Miracle Miles because he can lead, he's got gate speed, he is trained locally, he is the best miler we've seen. Well, roll on a year and you get some more of that. Here he is again. This time, he's again got the lead, he's been comfortable here and he's getting away from them a lot easier than he did the year before, outside of his expensive Ego. If you're confused by the colours, it's actually not Lochinvar Art, it's his driver, David Moran, driving expensive Ego, back when New South Wales had the driver's colours. So, on both occasions, Greg, the horses who sat outside him were the ones to provide the most danger, as often happens with the leader, but different type of race on Saturday night, softened up early, had to work a lot harder from not only Markdown but Bondi Lockdown, and that meant that the swooper, the stablemate swooper, a horse we know well, got the closest. I spoke to Luke McCarthy on Monday. I said, what did you think at the top of the straight? He said, I thought Jack Callahan, driving Spirit of St. Louis, might get us. But he said once he got to the legs of King of Swing, he said the championship qualities kicked in. He wanted to go again. He was a little bit tired, but he wanted to go again. As I said, Greg, perfect. A perfect end to the fairy tale. And part of me wants King of Swing to come to New Zealand for the race at Cambridge on April the 14th, Greg, but they're making the right choice. Because if he comes over here and wins, it doesn't add a lot more to his oomph. I reckon he'll stand at 10,000. It doesn't add anything to that. He won't get any more Mears because the Mears books in Australia are capped at 150. So what does he achieve? I would love to see him here. Yes, yes, and yes, but they've got to let him down and to be a stallion. They're doing the right thing with him, Greg, and that sums up this aspect of his career. We'll talk more about his earlier days because I know you've spoken to Ray Green. He would be, as in the 35 years I've professionally covered harness racing, as perfectly a trained horse as I've ever seen. There's been a few. Tim Butt was very good at getting the best out of his horses and putting them in the right places to win races. Mark Purdon had an amazing run with Lazarus. He did an incredible job under tricky circumstances, racing in different states, different ways around, north, south, right-handed, left-handed, standing starts, mobiles. He did a great job with Lazarus. But this is as good as trained horses I've ever seen. They haven't overextended him. They haven't been doing stupid things and taking him to races he couldn't win. Even when he's lined up in races, Greg, and he's been beaten, he's performed really well. And they've retired him at the right time after achieving their goal. I know it's a lot easier when you have a good horse to do that, and a good sound horse, but the McCarthys have a great setup. They have the water walkers and the treadmills and everything you need to do that, Greg. In 35 years, that's as perfectly orchestrated career as I've seen. They got the absolute best out of King of Swing.
Yeah, they certainly did. $3.3 million, of course, bred by Breckon Farms, Ken and Karen Breckon, off the back of their success at the recent awards. Let's go back to what I think was his New Zealand best performance, and this was an incredible run, Michael. That's him in front, David Butcher driving for Ray Green. More about why he purchased this horse earlier. Chase Auckland getting through on his inside. Now, they rated 152.2 this day, a New Zealand record for the 1950. Yes, Chase Auckland got away on him, but he did all the donkey work, got softened up in front and kept on kicking. This was when I thought, man, he's a serious horse, and he'd already shown us that by winning the Breeders' Crown earlier in the year.
Yeah, and most importantly, Greg came back from the Breeders' Crown, which back then was in the last week of August. So he came back from August, had a couple of runs in the north, then went south. A few horses have tried that, and usually it hasn't worked. The Breeders' Crown late August into November has been a disaster for most horses who have tried. Take Chase Auckland, who's a future Group 1 winner of the New Zealand Free for All, Greg, out of that race. And at the time was an exceptional 3-year-old. And he's panelled the rest of them in 152 and change. So, yeah, maybe I think the Breeders' Crown was the time I first thought to myself, this might be a serious horse, but that seems an awfully long time ago, Greg. And when you consider he's only just retired, and you look at the rest of the horses in that race, some of them, sadly, have passed on. Chase Auckland's been retired and had a substantial injury, Greg. For him to race on, and I think he's probably gone 151 or quicker in almost all of those 12 winning miles at Manangu, or close enough to it. remarkable, really.
$80,000 purchase. I put it to Ray Green, what did you like about him? He said, Rock and Roll Hanover over in Arts Place was the magic cross up in the States. A perfect yearling is how he described him, and an absolute gentleman to train. He said, they ummed and ahed as to whether to sell him. They got the right sort of money out of Perth, and therefore they did, and the rest is history. But he said, gee, he was a beautiful horse to train. Here's his stats now, Michael, and this takes some reading. 82 starts, 44 wins. Nearly $3.4 million. 11 of those wins at Group 1. 1 for Ray Green, being the Breeders' Crown, and the WA Derby for Team Hall. He's the only horse ever to win 3 Miracle Miles. He is unbeaten over the mile at Manangu. The only horse to win multiple Hunter Cups and Miracle Miles, and he won Group 1 races, as you can see there, at 2, 3, 5, 6 and 7. Ray said the only reason you didn't see him a bit earlier as a 2-year-old is he actually had a chip in one of his ankles, so that made them sort of back off him a little bit, and given the size of him and the weight of the horse, it probably played to him throughout his career, because maybe they might have hurt him more if they'd gone a bit harder early. But yeah, those stats there, nothing short of remarkable. And of course what Team McCarthy, or Craig Cross and Team McCarthy did with him is great reading as well.
Yeah, and Gary Hall obviously looked after him pretty well in WA. I don't think he was suited to the smaller track over there, so he did win a WA Derby. I think he's got a shot at making a domestic stallion. I think domestic stallions in this part of the world are incredibly hard to make. Obviously it worked for Christian Cullen and Courage Under Fire. It might work for Lazarus by the look of some of his yearlings. With the Australians, it just hasn't worked for many of them in the last 20 or 30 years. Worked for a couple of the trotting ones actually, which is even weirder, but probably have less opposition. But with the fact that you can go to Art Major, or of course Better's Delight being the absolute king, it's just so hard, Greg. You can go to Captain Treacherous, you can go anywhere. It's just bloody hard to make a domestic stallion. The reason I think he has an opportunity is about fourfold. He's a big, strong horse, which means should produce at least some big, strong horses, and as we saw with Christian Cullen, that's great for the sales ring. They're a lot easier to sell when they're big and strong. People like that sort of stuff. Secondly, very sound. Raced very sound through his entire career. That's a huge bonus. Thirdly, he's an outcross to the Better's Delight mares, and there is an absolute army of Better's Delight mares just walking around looking for boyfriends. So that's really advantageous to him, because most of the best mares in the last 10 years have been by Better's Delight, and they can go to him. And Belinda and Luke are very well connected. They're well liked. And $10,000 is not a lot of money for a horse like this. With the capped breeding books now, Luke was telling me Monday the horse is half full. Here we end up with an outstanding book, Greg. And that's very rare for a domestic stallion, incredibly so. So that outcross to the Better's Delight thing's absolutely massive. He'll get a shot. It's up to him, Greg, but he'll get a shot. And the other thing about it too is, for the local mares, winning races in New South Wales isn't that tough. There's lots of outlets in New South Wales away from Manangu. A horse like Bling It On's leaving good horses. There's horses there who aren't as good as this horse, who are leaving good commercial type horses and are getting a crack, whereas you stand him here and he has 100 foals on the ground in New Zealand, you're racing Better's Delights and Art Majors and Captain Treacherouses every day of the week, Greg, which is a lot harder to do. You know, you could rack up 20 wins with the King of Swings in 5 years at Bathurst alone before they go to Parks and Young and all the other places. And that means you have less failures. You have less foals who turn out to be no good and more foals who turn out to win 5 races. They may not be at the tracks you think are sexy, but they still happen. And then you have Luke and Belinda back in the machine, getting foals off him, going to trainers who are after Mark Purdon and Hayden Cullen or Natalie Rasmussen. Greg, the best trainers in this part of the world. There's a lot of pluses there. It's an enormously perfect storm for why he can make it. Now, Gregory, I suppose it's up to him.
It is up to him. The record with the McCarthy Cross pair were 33 starts. It was for 25 wins, 7 placings, and then that 5th in the Inter-Dominion final. So, yeah, an incredible run they had out of that barn, and it's been a pleasure to be able to watch him develop and then carry on and do what he's achieved across in Sydney in the main. Of course, he won a couple of Hunter Cups to boot, so he's just a remarkable horse. I think Robert Dunn was the underbidder, Ray told me as well, so there were a couple of good judges on him nice and early. And just on the Ray Green team, copy that has been on the Water Walker, and he'll have a further x-ray later this week, but Ray told me that things are looking good now. So it was great to acknowledge the third successive win in the Miracle Mile, only horse to do it for King of Swing. But the significance for our race on the 14th of April, Michael, is around one of the slot holders picking up Mac Dan. I think we'll go with Mac Dan rather than Mark Dan. We just need to settle on one of them because he's been called both, a little bit like Spirit of St. Louis. His gate speed is going to be crucial, especially when I got confirmation today from Dave Branch from Cambridge that it will be a front line of 8 and a second row of 2. That gives him a very good chance of drawing the front row.
It gives him a 75% chance, Greg, because obviously there's 2 mares in the race, so a lot to unpack here. Let's get down to business. Mac Dan is in the race. He is already in Pukekohe. He's in the care of Mark Purdon and Hayden Cullen. They will train him for the race. So said to Mark, what do you make of him? He said, this horse has amazing gate speed. He said, I was stunned he could cross King of Swing at the start of the Miracle Mile. So what do you make of the front line against horses like yours? Self-assured, he said, he'll just lead any of these horses. So the 2 mares, Gregory, Stylish Memphis, of course, and Spellbound are guaranteed 1 and 2. Probably Spellbound beats Stylish Memphis off the gate regardless. Then there's 8 slots left, and as you said, it's now confirmed at 8 and 2, front line versus second line for the race. So 6 chances out of 8, 75% chance Mark Dan draws the front line, from where Gregory he would almost, after we saw him cross King of Swing, certainly lead. You put him in front, Greg, with potentially, here's the little fish hook to this one, Natalie Rasmussen driving him. Said to Mark, who drives? He said, well, Natalie will get the choice between him and Spankham. Now, she may go for Spankham, but the way Mark Dan's going, and Spankham having a little bit of a respiratory issue at the moment, Greg, you put Natalie Rasmussen, who is fearless, on a fearless horse on the front line of the race, and all of a sudden, there's no lead there for Self-Assured, there's no lead for South Coast Arden, Greg. The mares get crossed in a heartbeat, and it's race on. May not happen. A lot of water to go under the bridge, but crucially, he's in the country, Gregory. He's here. He's ready to race. So there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, but he's on the right side of that water.
Yeah, he certainly is. Let's have a look at the market for it. $2.50 for Self-Assured, Spankham $4.80, South Coast Arden $5.50, Mac Dan at $9. Then you're out to Pembroke Playboy $11, Krug $13. One Change, who races at Addington, we'll preview that later in the show, $15. Hot and Treacherous, who's in the race, $17. Stylish Memphis, who's in the race at $17. And Spellbound at $26. They are the ones in the market. BD Joe, $31. Cranbourne, $61. Can go $151. Still.
So Greg, just on that, obviously a couple of other things to unpack for people who are sort of catching up on all this. Obviously, Mark Dan has been signed by Ian Dobson,
yes,
Cullen Breeding.
Cullen Breeding, yep.
So, and they want him to wear their colours in the race.
Yes.
So he'll be in the famous green colours. That means Akuta's not going. So Akuta was favourite for this race. We warned you a couple of months ago, don't back him. Yep. He's not going. There's no chance he'll get a slot now. It's impossible unless something goes wrong with another horse. We'll get to that in a second. So he's out of the race, he's gone. He races this week at Alexandra Park. Mark Dan races in those colours. Spellbound's coming across. Nathan Purdon is bringing him. He won't be part of the Mark Purdon team or the Hayden Cullen team. He's coming with Nathan for a 1-race campaign. Tony Hurley will take him. He's the Hole in the Wall Gang syndicate. And of course, John Green, who's part of that syndicate, was also in the Honeybrow syndicate and has taken Hot and Treacherous. So we have 7 spots in the race are gone. 2 we think are gone. South Coast Arden, who will get a slot unless something goes wrong because his owners have a slot. And Spankham, who has a slight respiratory infection. That's because of all the dust here in the north. He's been getting a lot of dust in his nose. It's annoying him. He's not racing this week. Mark says he'll race next week. And he said, yes, we think we'll be at Cambridge April 14. So, Greg, that leaves one more space, which you and I think will be One Change because Trevor Casey, his part owner, is also part of a syndicate in a slot. Spoke to Luke McCarthy because those slot holders also share in the ownership of Spirit of St. Louis. Luke said, no, he's going to the paddock. We're definitely not coming. We might have come, if the Australians could come. There's another twist on Wednesday. Jacinda Ardern is going to announce that almost certainly before Easter, Australians can come to New Zealand if they're double vaccinated, Greg, which means the owners of these horses, Danny Savasaros,
Some bloodstock people.
all those people can come across, and of course Gene Feast, who owns the favourite, will almost certainly
be able to come.
For Australian friends watching this, there's a lot going on here, can come across and actually watch the race. Now, there is going to be a reduced crowd at Cambridge because of the red light settings. That may also change before April 14th. But at this stage, Greg, what I'm predicting is Spanker will be in the race. One change, if he wins this week at Addington, which I think he will be in the race, there's our 10. The barrier draw will go on April the 9th on a Saturday night. Natalie Rasmussen, I think, will drive Mark Dan. I think the Australians will be able to come over and watch the race, or in fact drive. If Natalie goes Spankum, Nathan Jack might come drive.
Could do.
Dan. And I think there's a smidgen of a chance, Gregory, that the way things are going in this country, because every second person you meet's got COVID, we might have the crowd reductions or restrictions might have eased a touch. We might get 1,000 people there for the race, Gregory. So that's all the information I have in my head about the race. I'm glad we got it out because, man, there's been a lot of things going on.
Yeah, and there's a few key dates to look forward to too. Public ticket sales are to go out on Friday the 18th, that's this week. Wednesday the 6th will be the final field announcement. 9th, you've mentioned the barrier draw, and of course the race itself is on the 14th. So the race.nz is the website you need to go to keep an eye on everything.
Who's your pick? If I said to you right now, who's going to win the race?
I still reckon South Coast Arden will have a big part to play. I think if he draws inside 5 or 6, which he's got a fair chance of doing, his record at Cambridge is excellent. He won the Jewels there. Whether he can get the lead now, that's a different story.
Doesn't it change the race completely?
I think it's magnificent. Yep, magnificent.
If he's there with a normal New Zealand front line and he draws inside self-assured, he's almost certain to lead.
Yep.
Mark Dan can win this race.
Yeah,
absolutely no doubts he can win it. The $9
One thing I know for sure, Michael, that $9 will not be there by the time this show is.
There is zero chance.
Yep.
The most important factor is he's here.
Yes.
Because, one more thing, Spellbound is in Australia and there is Japanese encephalitis going around Australia for some of the horses. If it happened to get close enough to where she lives, inside 100 kilometres is the threshold at the moment, I don't know whether that's been breached already, then there could be concerns about her coming back. It's a concern for lots of people. People going to the sales over there and buying horses at the moment they can't come back. Now, a lot of that can change. And they're thinking she's not going to come here till around about late March or so, on sort of April 1 we'll make it. But Greg, that's the one little curly factor in this with Spellbound. So now I think we're finished. Now that's
I've got one more piece.
Oh,
spoke to
this will be good.
Nathan Williamson about Pembroke Playboy. Wasn't happy with him entirely after Ashburton. Just found him not to be 100% blood-wise, has treated him. That's why he's not at Addington this week. His plan to race at Addington in the Teltrack Communications free-for-all on the 1st, the Superstars on the 8th, on the truck on the 10th, staying at Andrew and Lynn Neal's where he stayed before on the 11th, and then the race on the 14th. So that's the latest from Pembroke
And over the
Playboy.
next month, Gregory, we're going to just let people know everything they could possibly know about the race. Because it's a big deal. $900,000 races just don't turn up every day of the week in this country. In fact, they do in New South Wales Gallops, but that's another story.
Yes,
so what we're going to do is go out and meet some of these horses.
Yep.
I'm going to leave Parnell, which takes a lot to make me do that, and I'm going to go and meet some of these horses and some of these people and see what it means to them and talk to them. And if you stick around on the box seat, you're going to see that type of stuff. And it's been confirmed. There's more information. I thought it was all done, but it's not. Sky One is taking the race in Australia. So Brilliant. Sky One's the big chunky channel. That's where most people watch. It's on a Thursday night, and I believe our little friend Brittany Graham's going to try and sneak across to get here. And when she said she might even come on the preview show, because two old dudes talking about harness racing might be more fun if there's someone feminine and young around. So that's probably where it's looking at the moment.
As was proved last week by having Matthew Cross on, but that's a story for another day. Right, let's move to another.
What's that supposed to mean?
He was excellent last week. Yeah. Really good.
Something to do with age.
The Honey Queen last week, Michael, back in winning form. Speaking of females doing the business, this was at Manangu last week. In front, low flying, 150.3, raced by the Green and Hughes families. This is her at her absolute best. Great to see her doing that. Need You Now was back on the inside running home okay. She'll start this week too, but nice to see the half to the fixer getting back into winning form. And of course, a full brother to the fixer was sold at the recent New Zealand Bloodstock sales for $100,000, Michael.
And he was a lovely looking colt too, purchased by a lovely woman I got to speak to afterwards. She was fantastic. So this horse is going to be worth a lot of money because she's clearly going to break 150. She'll break 150 in a jog at some stage, and we don't have that many 149 mares being bred from in New Zealand, which eventually she will be. There's Jack Callaghan, who is doing a super job. He's had a magical summer. Just on Need You Now, I spoke to Luke McCarthy about that. He said she just got confused, went back at the start, and they went slow. Then they really powered up. And she just got a bit out of her gait and a bit out of her mental comfort zone. He said she will be a different horse this Saturday night. He was very, very certain about that. So maybe punters, you should follow her at Manangu on Saturday night for take 2 of Need You Now, who eventually also, you would presume, Gregory, will end up with a very, very quick time over there.
Yeah, no doubt. So she's in race 6 along with Wainui Creek. Bad to the bones at race 1. He was a bit better last week running 3rd, and Andover Love's also racing there on Saturday night, race 8. Right, let's bring things back domestically. A couple of races I wanted you to have a look at. Here's the Dinny Johnston Waikato Guineas. This was Bollinger winning here, win 4 from start number 11. They broke 242 in front in the hands of Morris McKendry. Olivia Thornley coming down the outside with Cyrus. I thought Mr. Ibiza was good. The disappointment was Blame It on the Night, but I note later in the program we'll be talking about him, Michael.
Yeah, it was a weird race. There was a lot of pressure early, and I think some of the other drivers thought there might be some frailty in Bollinger because there used to be down south. He's growing up, Greg. He's growing up. He's going to be a very good 3-year-old in 6 months. He misses the Derby Prelude this week. Mark Purdon said he's had 2 runs in 2 weeks. We'll just back off him. So what do you make of him? He said, yeah, I think he's going to be a good horse. So I don't think he can win a Derby. I think it's going to be a little bit new for him with the Kuta and Franco Indy there and a couple of others. But I think he's going to end up a good horse on what I saw there last week, Greg. Willing to forgive, Blame It on the Night. Had a dig early, got stuck in the wrong part of the race, wasn't knocked around. I think he'll improve for this week at Alexandra Park. He's not on the Derby Prelude, which is going to present him with a really good chance to bounce back.
Yeah, good night for Anna Donnelly again, continues to train very well, rough and ready, and wildcard winning for her. And rain winning for Nikki Chilcott was a pretty special one with Cliff Thomas, a big stable supporter, passing away recently. Right, let's go to Addington Raceway. It was the first of the 2 West Coast meetings that were run there. This was the Westport New World Handicap, and back in winning form, Shan Noble. Great record of Natalie Rasmussen aboard, 6 drives, 4 wins, a second on show day and a 4th in the Derby. Getting over the top of a Brave the Falcon, that's Laver fading late in the piece. We'll hear from Mark Purdon post-race because he had better twist in it as well. Mark, a nice freshen up for Shan Noble. He's been really strong tonight.
Yes, just had the 1 trial back, but that was nice too. That was a good trial, and but his work's been very good at home, so we're expecting a good performance, but probably not a winning one tonight.
Yeah, Mark, look, he's always been very consistent. Is it fair to say he's strengthened up a little bit?
Yes, he has, Greg. No, he looks in great order, and he's a bit stronger this time around.
All right, he chased to the line very well. He went to the Nelson circuit, so he's had 1 qualifying race for the Country Cups Championship. Only a couple more to go, so he's probably going to head that way, do you think?
Yes, well, there's not many options left now. The Messenger and Taylor Mile are open races for free-for-all horses, so it's got a great stake of 100,000, so it's well worth chasing, and as long as he's not too far back in the handicaps, I think it'd be worth having a shot at.
All right, you also had better twist. It appeared from one look at it so far that it was a similar run to Ashburton. Is that how you, with the take you take out?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Probably just not run to suit her 100%, but just the same, I'd like her just to be finishing off a little bit better.
All right, so there's a free-for-all here next week, and is that almost, not D-Day for her career, but maybe in this campaign?
Yeah, I think so, Greg, because we know how good she was last year, and it's just a different kettle of fish now too, taking on the open company horses, but I would say she's pulled up well tonight. She hasn't blown hard or anything like that, so there's nothing you can put your finger on that why she shouldn't go round again anyway.
So excellent run from Shan Noble. Most of the focus though, Michael, was around Laver needing a performance to get himself into the race. He had some breathing issues again. He's already had an operation to help him with that, so they might be faced with going back and trying that again. And Better Twist, for mine, it was just a replica of her last couple of runs, particularly that run at Ashburton.
Yeah, I think they're getting close to retiring her. And she's got nothing left to prove. Even if she comes back, say she comes back at the end of this season and wins the Queen of Hearts, that's an awfully long way away. And she's not going to win an open class race. She's not going to win a New Zealand Cup. She's just not good enough. And that's nothing against her. She's a wonderful horse. She's a champion mare. But not many mares win the New Zealand Cup, so there's no point mucking around. Ken and Karen own a stud. They've got a wonderful horse. I think more and more harness racing, Greg's going to move towards good 3-year-olds / 4-year-olds now being retired. So we should. We don't need to race them forever. They've got plenty of great horses around them. She is a sister, or half-sister, to King of Swing. She's probably the most valuable broodmare in the country. So she's mine, Greg. I'd race her this week. Mark's the expert. You would listen to Mark more than you would listen to me, for sure. But retire her. Let her become a great mum and let her breed some of those fillies, which is going to make Breckon Farms even more of a powerhouse.
Yeah, exactly. Let's head further down south though and see their feature for the fillies down there. Here was McAitland Denario in front, but wow, Treacherous Gal just dive bombs her late by Captain Treacherous, not surprisingly out of Galleon's Pleasure. 2 from 2 now. Both Regan Todd and Robbie Close are just flying at the moment, Michael. I think Robbie's honing in on about 400 wins, Regan 200 as a trainer, and they, when you see those colours, get instant respect anywhere they go.
So does this filly now. That was a really good fillies performance. I think we've got a long way to go with our 2-year-old fillies yet before we know anything about them. Of course, the Young Guns Fillies finals Friday week, so we'll have a bit more indication by then, but they'll need to be pretty good to beat her. She's a very good horse, Greg, so yeah, it's good to see Regan getting that young blood in the stable. When you beach train, a lot of people think you're doing up other horses, like the Oscar Bonavides, of course, which he's taken over, or the Fixer, who he had previously, but it's all about the 2-year-olds, Greg. That's where the easier kills for the big money is. Those open class races are hard to earn. So that's the next phase of Regan's career. He's won a Breeders' Crown, of course, with Showgate, the trotter. So, Greg, I would say horses like this will do him no harm at all. Yeah, and Street Hawk, of course, won an Alabar Supremacy heat, beating the Mossdales, Ben and Terry. So it was a good day down there from where he's from. And Northern Southland put on a wonderful afternoon, as they invariably do. Michael, last week on the show, I caught up with Gary Woodham and went over various aspects of where the industry's at, a number of topics, got a lot of feedback about that. What we are going to do is have a follow-up with him, and if there's any questions out there, send them to our email, the box seat. We will endeavour to put those to Gary. I think it's very important to be transparent about this, and therefore if you've got any questions, send it to our email address, which is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. But he fronted up, Gary, and he answered every question that I put to him. Yeah, and look, at least you have the accessibility to get to those people, Greg. In most countries, there's no chance you can talk to the boss of an industry. You just can't. Yep. So, look, I think Gary's got his battles on his hands. It's really hard because the gallops are growing so fast, and they're growing in Australia at an exponential rate. And the amount of people you talk to in the pub in New Zealand who like Australian galloping more than even domestic galloping is huge. And for lots of people, Greg, it's their viewing experience now. Their racing viewing experience is that. And it doesn't transpire to harness racing at night because it's too late. Most people watching this show who love harness racing wouldn't have watched the Miracle Mile live, Greg, because it's past their bedtime. I spoke to Greg Hope on Sunday, so I didn't watch it. I tried to, but I didn't. And because of that, we're not getting a lot of betting on Australian racing, and therefore we're not getting the returns, and it doesn't increase our percentage of the pie. And none of this has got anything to do with Gary or harness racing in New Zealand. It's not their fault. But it makes it bloody hard, Greg. And that's why I think it's important the TAB supports harness racing as best they can with more options on harness racing options. There's not as many options on a harness race, any harness race, as there is on a galloping race. And no one's convinced me that's a good idea, and no one's told me why, Greg. Now, I might be out of the loop, but that's a question Gary has to ask him, Greg, because we're not going to have any chance of getting or holding our own in turnover until we have his at least as many options as the gallops.
Yeah, a level playing field, that's all you can ask for. There's the first question I'll put to him when we catch up next time. Time for us to take a quick break here on Your Box Seat with our stable of sponsors. A big thank you to them. Again, on the other side, we have some serious domestic harness racing to preview. Welcome back into Your Box Seat. Better numbers, Alexandra Park this week. Let's have a look at some of the features, Michael, starting with the Breckon Farms, the Founders Cup. This has got a lot of history behind it, this race, and this is the race we hoped to see a couple of weeks ago in the Auckland Co-op Taxi. City of Auckland free-for-all, South Coast Arden in front, Self-Assured goes past him, Hot and Treacherous ducking to the inside. They go to war again, and they have drawn alongside each other, as you would expect. Self-Assured outside South Coast Arden again, but there's an awful lot of speed to their inside this week.
There is, and it's going to be interesting of the attitude of those inside, whether they say it's 1,700 metres. Most of them aren't in the race. Hot and Treacherous is, obviously these two big boys are, but most of them not being there, Greg, do they say to themselves, hey, this is my grand final, we're close enough to it, I have a dig. BD Joe, do I maybe park these good horses? Maybe not, I don't know. Spoke to Mark Purdon about Self-Assured. He said, I would like to drive him with the sit this week. Now, what version of sit means, I don't really know, because it's 1,700 metres, whether that's not going back to last, but trying to get the 1-1. I don't think he's going to go forward, put it that way. And I think, Greg, the attitude of the drivers inside, maybe it's all about Faith, for example, gets the lead, and whether they hand to South Coast Arden, who would seem the natural pressure in the race, is crucial. I like the market for this race. South Coast Arden is $3, and if I had to guess, I would say he would probably end up in front. And I'm loving him at $3 in front, Greg, because he's so hard to get past, particularly if Self-Assured is going to be driven with a sit. Again, we're not saying he won't move, but they won't be blasting off the gate with him, Greg. If that's the case, $3 for South Coast Arden's outstanding money.
Yep. So $2.10 favourite for the race, Self-Assured. Also the money about BD Joe I thought was pretty good, around $8, because he's definitely a go-forward type of horse, as can Hot and Treacherous be, and he's $8 as well. All right, moving on to the first of our preludes, this being the Derby Prelude with Woodland Stud. Here's a Cooter back in winning form. He comes up with Barrier 7 outside of Franco Indy, who he's getting past in this race, and Franco Mack is drawn pretty nicely in Barrier 4, as is Beach Ball this week, who had no luck last time in the Classic there. So $1.50 about a Cooter, Michael, from the outside barrier. Is he back in that type of form? Is he that dominant the way he won this race? There might be a few suggesting he is.
Look, maybe he's dominant, but I'm not sure he's going to be driven that way. On this occasion, he did look to go forward. He didn't get the lead. He was excellent and won regardless. Again, I spoke to Mark, because I knew we were coming on the show. We're trying to give people all this information so they can play. And he said, I would like to drive him with a sit again. It's a prelude. The Derby preludes, or the lead-up races to Derbies, have traditionally been very, very tricky for punters. A lot of Derby favourites have been beaten. In fact, if you went back through the Derby preludes, or sometimes they've been in handicap races against the older horses, Greg, I would say the Derby favourites lost more preludes than it has won. I think he'll go back at the start. If they go slow, he maybe goes around. Beach Ball is a horse who can go about 2:37. I don't think they'll go slow. I still think he'll win. Would I take $1.50 to find out? Absolutely not, because you now have the same information I have, which is he is likely to be driven with a sit and won't be rushing forward to lead. Now, Greg, when I tell people that information, that's what Mark was thinking on Tuesday. He may change his mind. Things can change, but these indications are what they are hoping to achieve. Whether they're achievable, the horses, things change, but that's what we're thinking. So for that reason, I don't want to back Self-Assured or a Cooter this week. Because
they could both just as well come out and win, though, couldn't they? They could.
100%. 100% they could. But there's a lot of races in the course of a year. You're going to find better $1.50 chances than a Cooter this week.
Yep. totally agree with that. Pasco's the Jewelers Northern Oaks Prelude is the next. Here's Cover Girl getting the better of Dance Till Dawn. Now, you might think this week, Michael, same scenario again. I spoke to Bob Butt about that this afternoon. He said, I reckon I'll be 3 the fence. Mr. Kaplan will get us at the start, and she wasn't in this race. That Cover Girl just got the business done in the Peter Breckon Memorial Caduceus. It was a great performance after getting a beautiful run in transit. So he sees the race slightly differently. Of course, No True Fantasy, she's also been suffering with a respiratory issue similar to what Spankham had, and Mark said, look, wasn't happy enough for her to start this week, have had her treated, and she will still take her place in the Oaks. She's $1.90 in the Oaks now. What do you make of this market though? Cover Girl 360, 424 Dance Till Dawn, neither being favourite. Mr. Kaplan also not favourite, because Remember Me's back and draws the outside, has come up $3.
Comes down to intent for me, Greg, what they're trying to do here. Because I think Remember Me's the best filly in this field. I think the form behind True Fantasy, even that win there where they beat her with Cover Girl, I think it hasn't been strong. I think they've been okay, but there's no stars at this field when you take True Fantasy out, which is why she's dominated it mainly over time. I think Remember Me's a star. She's missed obviously all these races because she's been in New South Wales, and she had no luck in New South Wales. She was pretty good over there and very good early in the campaign. I think if they want to get involved on Remember Me, I think she probably wins if she produces her best. If they are driving her to make her feel comfortable and happy and get her in the right mental frame for the Oaks the week after, Greg, then maybe she doesn't win. So I'm going to ring everybody involved in these races and try and get the information for Harness Racing New Zealand and for the New Zealand Herald and tell people what people are thinking. Again, doesn't always pan out that way, Greg, but crucially, preludes of any race are preludes. They're not the big dance, and the big dance next week is Group 1, so that's a different kettle of fish. We'll try and work out for you. Stick around with us on social media, but more importantly on the big channels like harnessracingnewzealand.co.nz, and we'll try and get that information to people, Greg.
The other 2 races I want to have a quick look at, Michael, are also preludes in many ways, with the Young Gun finals next week. This is a horse called Beckham, beautifully bred colt, Betters Delight Golden Goddess, 4-gene Feast. That's him in the middle in the hands of Mark Purdon. To his outside, Michael's a horse called Don't Stop Dreaming. You remember him because he went through the sale ring last year, and they put the wrong horse in, and he had to be sold later in the day and sold for $250,000. Spoke to Natalie Rasmussen about that trial performance. She said, oh, he's a really nice horse. So's the second horse. That second horse was Beckham. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's come up with the outside barrier in his first look at Alexandra Park, and he's got Sooner the Better and Sevi drawn in 1 and 2. It won't be an easy welcome to the park for him.
Couple of things. I think the horse who won that trial is the best 2-year-old they've got.
Yep.
For the All-Stars, and I think it'll turn into be a very, very good horse. That was a strong performance at Ashburton. Beckham, I couldn't be on him this week at all.
Right.
Not because he's not good enough, because he's going to have to beat 2 horses who know what they're doing, Sevi and Sooner the Better, who are going to almost certainly lead in trail. So if he's going to sit parked and beat them, Greg, he's going to need to be awfully good. Now, I'm not saying he's not good enough to do it. I don't know the horse very well. I've only seen him twice. But this is odd. He's favourite for the Young Guns final.
230.
Now, forgetting the fact that Sevi's a very good horse, Merlin's probably better than Sevi.
Yep.
And Merlin's a wicked little horse. How Beckham's more favoured than Merlin is just odd.
Take the 260, Michael. 260 for Merlin.
Is that right?
Yep. 260 for him, 350 for Sevi. So.
Yep. And look, say Sevi is absolutely a very good horse, but Merlin outpointed him last time. He got him. Yep. He was too good. So I think Merlin can win this race. Oh, yeah, I know. Look, if you're backing against Mark Purdon and Hayden Cullen, or in any of these different situations he's in Group 1s, you tend to lose. But, gee, this is a stretch. Pitting this horse as favourite for a race when he hasn't won a race against a horse like Merlin, who's just been super every time he's gone to the track trials or race. Yep,
he's been unbeaten, no question about that. That's the Breckon Farms Young Guns for the boys. Let's have a look at Kalua Flyby, winning last time. Gets an even better barrier draw this week, comes up with the plum draw of 1. Is $250 to win the final, Michael. Darts through on the inside in the hands of Peter Ferguson here, and does it really nicely, beating race rival Art Dior. That is the second favourite, the notorious Price RGB in third. So Kalua Flyby will start a very warm favourite for the Crombie Lockwood Bloodstock Young Guns Heat number 3, I would think.
Yeah, I thought it'd win this week for sure, Greg. Just take it as your multi-anchor, smart horse, nice horse. Art Dior's a good horse, but if they lead trail like this again, you would presume it would beat it again. So good fillies bunch, and Tony's filly, who finished third in that race, is also a pretty good filly, but she's not in this week. But yeah, Kalua Flyby, close enough to bet of the week. Didn't go that, Greg, because I think they'll open it pretty short.
Yeah, I do too, Michael. Excellent program there, Alexandra Park on Friday night, and they've got 11 races, so make sure you tune in, because when we come back on the other side of this break, we'll have a look at the 2 free-for-all features out of Addington Raceway, also on Friday night. For harness racing followers, it's going to be an excellent night on the couch. You're in your home straight, in your box seat, Addington Raceway on Friday night. 9-race program marks the return of some excellent racehorses, including this horse, AG's White Sox. Michael makes his race track return. It's hard to wind the clock back to his 2 Group 1 wins, of course, which were a Taylor Mile and an Easter Cup. This is him beating Sugar Me at the trials, home in 58.5, 28.6. Overall time wasn't that flash, but we had Greg Hope on SENZ Trots Talk on Sunday, said Ricky May was very pleased with him. He does come back to Addington Raceway this week, and he takes on a decent sort of a field. Classy Brigade, One Change, who's looking for that spot, of course, in the race. Also their Better Twist, All-American Lover and Sugar Me. So excellent contest.
It's a good contest, but gee, it's going to be hard for him fresh up. I know the beach-trained horses tend to have worked harder, therefore their lungs are nice and open and they're ready to go, but gee, this would be a big win, Greg, over One Change. He's flying. They're probably comparable horses ability-wise. They're both obviously Group 1 winners, as you mentioned. But can AG's White Sox sit parked outside One Change, which you would think there'd be no relenting to him? I wouldn't think so. So Sugar Me's a pretty good horse. He beat him, but One Change would beat Sugar Me at the moment too. So I think he's too close to him in the market, Greg. I think you're getting 650. Happy to wait for AG's White Sox for another day, but thrilled to see him back. He's been a wonderful horse, very underrated horse, and as we saw earlier, finished third in the Miracle Mile to King of Swing. So they had into the Minions in 2019 at Alexandra Park. I think that reminded everybody what a good horse AG's White Sox is. So well done to Greg and Nina getting him back.
Yep, looking forward to seeing him, as I are the clash again between Muscle Mountain and Sunday Sun. Here's Sunday Sun back at the trials and winning. 5 Wise Men to his outside, Mataderos to their inside. Really nice trial from Sunday Sun. We come to expect that anyway. Home in 57 and 28.6, Michael. So just what he needed to tick him over for this. He comes up with the outside draw, with Muscle Mountain drawn in barrier 2. What do you make of this Woodland Stud free-for-all trot this week?
I'll use the same word I used before. It's just odd. The market for this race is odd. I would have thought it would be $2, Sunday Sun, $2.40, Muscle Mountain, and write your ticket the rest. But just take all the other percentage out of the market, because you're not going to need it. They're not going to win. But Muscle Mountain's $3.20, Greg. It's great money. It's just great money. When he's been in front of Sunday Sun, he's been able to beat him. I'm not saying he'll beat him this week. I haven't seen enough of him at the trials to know. And again, I'll do some research. I'll make some phone calls and try and find out for all the people watching this, Greg. But when you're talking about a horse who when he leads can beat Sunday Sun, more than likely being in front of him, Greg, and what I think is just a point-blank 2-horse race, Robert Dunn's already told me this week he thinks Mataderos will need the run, and that trial would suggest that. Well, I'm happy to be taking 3.2, Greg, unless I can find information otherwise, which, of course, we will pass on to the punters.
Yeah, look, it's an intriguing contest, and if you wanted to multi up the likes of One Change at about $2.10, who looks like he'll take out that free-for-all, you would think, into, say, the $3.20 for Muscle Mountain, I would have thought that was a pretty good sort of a multi with a couple of quality horses who know how to win, Michael.
Yeah, and look, Sunday Sun might just beat him because he's a better horse than Muscle Mountain, but he's also semi-fresh up. And if you go, oh, well, Sunday Sun's a champion, what do you know you're talking about? the last time he got stuck outside a horse, Bolt for Brilliance, he beat him. Bolt for Brilliance beat him. So he's not unbeatable Sunday, son. He's probably unbeatable at his absolute peak, but I'm not sure he's at his absolute peak, Greg. So this is why I would love us to have presenters on track all the time. I would love to have people go into meetings. It wouldn't be me, it'd be Craig. It's Craig's job to go to Alexander Park. But I think it's so valuable to get this information from people and say, what are you intending? How is your horse? How's this going to go? Because it's really hard for the punters. We're trying to do our best at harness racing New Zealand, and the Herald's really trying to do its best. But, gee, it's hard, Greg, because unless you hear those words out of people's mouths, it's bloody hard to bet with confidence.
Yeah, and it does give you confidence when you do get that right sort of information. Big meeting there on Saturday will be at the Wyndham Harness Racing Club's Young Quinn Raceway. And one of the horses I wanted to highlight was around the Matara Licensing Trust Wyndham Cup. They race there for $20,000. Just angling off the trail, there's Tommy Waterhouse. He gets very close here. I think Tim Williams is down to drive him this week, and I reckon if he goes like he did in this race, he'll be hard to beat. That's Dr. Tim charging into third position there. The winner of the race, Midfru Louisiana Beau, is also in the race, back on 10 metres with Love on the Rocks, who won last week. So this is a deep sort of a race. Market reads Teal or Toll about $8.50, Dr. Tim $6.50, Yorikobi, who's having its first standing start at $6, Cora Valley Star, who will be looking to head to that Country Cups Championship at Addington on Easter Saturday for $100,000. It's actually the $4.50 favourite, and a horse like Idealism at $9. I know it's not big on your radar, Michael, in terms of races you like to get involved in, but gee, there's some depth in that Country Cups, both in the south and in the Canterbury region at the moment.
It's been a huge success. It's been a massive success, and good on them. I mean, these $100,000 finals, they're great because it gives these horses who may not make a New Zealand Cup, and some of them will, but it gives them something to aim at, Greg. I think it's massive. And the idea of Harness Racing New Zealand's calendar is to create more betting, but it's also to keep horses in the country. And, Greg, that keeps horses in the country. You're not going to sell a horse this week who's racing for $100,000 in a month's time. So, yep, great concept, love it, and happy enough to lose a race. I used to like the Easter Cup, but the Easter Cup had become a very small field race, Greg. If we have to swap it out for the Country Cups Championship, I think I'd love both. If I have to take one, happy for it to be the way it is.
Hey, Michael, just while we finish up on the preview there, Sunday Sun, $333 off $1 million, joining that really elite
That's
group.
why John Dunn's in Christchurch this week. Yep. That's why he's staying for the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. To get $1 million as a trotter, you have to go to Australia, and he didn't.
Yep.
So, and he's not finished.
No, absolutely not.
I would love to see him go to Australia. I would love to, because I think their trotters aren't very good.
And
I think he would go over there and spank them. I'd love to see him get a head of steam up and get angry at Manangu one night and go 151. I reckon he would go 151.
Yep.
Around Manangu under the right circumstances. So whether I get that wish, Gregory, the borders are opening.
Yes, they are.
Everything's possible, Gregory. Everything's in play now.
News through from our TAB friends too, the bookmakers. Here's some of the hits and misses from last week. Willie Rock, 6,500 midweek at Oamaru. Good luck to you, 155. Roll Your Own, finally delivered. Blair Orange steering for Grant Payne at $2.20. Nice win. Come Together, delivered for the Rakiro Racing best bet of the week at $1.80. Actually opened $2. I thought that was overs. And the last race at Rangiora on Sunday to wrap up the West Coast race meeting. Tom Martin delivered there. Couple went astray though. Laver, 6,500, wasn't at 100%, was he? $1.75. And a massive bet on a maiden, Hey Mickey Denario there, 7,000, also at that price, going unstuck, and himself getting beaten down there too. One of the few for Bob Butt that hasn't been winning when the punters have been on. So yeah, that was the hits and misses. What about where harness racing will be in Aotearoa this week? Let's have a look at that for you. Manawatu Country Cup, $20,000 there on Thursday. They get underway at just before 5 o'clock. Addington have the 9 races, still the same start time, 5:27, and a very good program there. It goes alongside the Prelude night, if you like, at Alexandra Park, which includes the Lincoln Farms, the Founders Cup. They've got 11 races, but they do start at 5:05, so an update there. Wyndham have just talked about big program they have, 10 race program there underway at 9 minutes past 12, and the Malt field's just not out for us to preview today, 11 race program there, and Wingatui race on Monday, the dual code there, Michael, and we have half a dozen races there, 2 minutes past 12. In fact, if I wind the memory banks back, Michael, I reckon it's 2 years since Wingatui had the last harness race before we went into lockdown. Pretty sure that's right. Blair Orange might have driven the winner. There you go.
Long time ago, Gregor. 2 years ago, I was getting ready to go to the All-Star Mile in Melbourne, and someone said, you can't go because of COVID. And I was like, well, I've heard of COVID. What's it all about? Well, I've heard of a lot more, Greg, in the last couple of years. And look, I know some of our brothers and sisters out there in the harness racing community, whether they're owners or trainers or drivers, whoever, they would have had family members or themselves who have got COVID, Greg. So we hope everybody stays safe as best they can, and we can all get through this. But I do like what's happening in the north, Greg. I know it's cyclical now. We're going to go to different parts of the country, but in the next 2 months, we've got some amazing racing coming up in the north, and I really hope we can get Alexandra Park back on an even keel, and I hope that we can get behind the race, and that's everybody in the industry, from the TAB right down to all the people involved. I hope we can get behind it, Greg, because if we can't get excited about this, then what's the point?
All right, let's get excited about the Rakiro Racing bets of the week. You've gone with Blame It on the Night at the park in race 2.
Willing to forgive last week. He did drop out, but it was a far stronger race. He drops into a very easy field, I think. I think it's actually a good night to punt on Friday night, Greg. I really like the night. I'll be on the phone doing the work. As I said to everybody watching, Harness Racing New Zealand or hrnz.co.nz will try and find all the information for you and give it to you for free.
Yeah, well, I like Glory's Delight in race number 3. I reckon she drops back into the right race and got a flat tyre last week. Jason down south has gone for Joe's Rock. That's at Wyndham on Saturday, and he would have been passed on. That's in an Oaks heat down there. That they had a Team Teal oyster raffle down there. Michael, they rose over $2,200 from oyster raffles. That would be quite good going, wouldn't it? We'll get an update and get that final figure for next week's show, but well done to them down there. What about this photo? There's the boys, Michael, the Woodlands boys, Better's Delight and Sweet Lou, about to leave and head back on their journey to North America. So with IRT and Woodlands, although that was a great shot.
Nothing like a boys' trip, Greg. Especially when you're as popular as those two, I'm sure they'll be very popular when they get back to the States.
All right, plenty of information on this week's show. More to come, particularly around the race. Michael, thanks for your input as always, and enjoy your harness racing week ahead.